doing? Today, we're going to be talking about mental health in the Black community. This is really on brand for me because I myself am struggling with mental health. Moving on. A little parched there. Anywho, so there are two different types of responses Black people usually get when it comes to the topic of mental health. Exhibit A.
Hi, you can just take a seat right there. Hello, how are you?
Hi.
So our first question for today is, what are your thoughts on therapy?
Therapy?
Yes.
No. I am... Stop. I'm sorry. I don't know what y'all invited me on this show here to talk about, but therapy is...
Don't you sell spirituality crystals?
And I do a lot of crazy stuff.
Bombastic side eye.
Absolutely not. Like, what? I am not trying to look like one of them crazy ass people on the news. Are you kidding me? I'm out of here. Am I still getting paid?
Miss, you were never getting paid.
Oh! Option B.
Come in. Can I help you?
Yeah, I've just been feeling really, down lately. I mean, my counselor thinks I might be depressed, and she told me I should talk to you, and you should see about getting a therapist.
I know,
I don't know, I just feel like I need to talk to somebody.
Oh!
I know damn well you did not walk up in my room talk about some BS like that. You depressed.
I mean, yeah.
You want to talk to a therapist. You got some therapy money?
Don't
You got some
insurance
can I get
cover
some
that?
help money?
No.
No, we don't do shit like that in this house. You want to see the pastor? The pastor's free.
He was just stealing from the collection
When's the last time you
plate.
talked to God?
Here we
When's
go.
the last time you got one of these up in your hands?
Oh,
One of these. Yeah.
last Sunday. Go ahead and depress them pages. See if you learn something. What you say?
Nothing. Whether you've grown up with these phrases or experienced them firsthand, the myths and stigmas surrounding mental health are nothing evasive. AF. Reaching out from stereotypes, repeated history, outsiders, and family ties, these things can be really difficult to deal with. The Black community's inherent and persistent struggle with mental health is mainly due to the domestic and systemic nurturing of extremely outdated stigmas. It's kind of embarrassing. And a dire need for more trust within each other and the healthcare system. With all of that being said, how exactly are these issues going unchecked? Let's dive deep, shall we? Well, I just wanted to say that I am a white woman and I didn't grow up with much. It's just me, my daddy, and my 17 brothers, the farm, and my mental health is just fine. Just excellent.
Miss McGirthy, did you need a minute?
No, I'm fine. I'm peachy keen. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like, the Blacks are making this about race, and it's really not. Honestly, mental health just is like a you problem. Like my kind didn't have anything to do with that. Quite frankly, if you ask me, their kind is more likely to do some really ghetto stuff. Yeah. But it can't be helped. Is that teacup?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
The interview's over, miss. You can leave.
Is this being posted? Ooh. As enlightening and extremely unrelated to my business as that is, that still ignores the fact that Black people have been systemically set up for failure in this country for centuries. We have evidence that shows racial bias does exist within the mental health care system, making it much harder for Black people to seek out mental health care. Even when Black Americans do choose to see a therapist, they may face racial microaggressions in therapy, which could leave them unwilling to seek out these services in the future. In one study, 53% of patients of color reported experiencing microaggressions in psychotherapy. BFFR, a whopping 53% of BIPOC patients reported microaggressions in a therapy session that they're paying for. Bruh, can you imagine, bro? Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
I am Dr. Marshall, but you can just call me Rebecca.
My name is Lauren.
So tell me, why did you decide to seek therapy today?
Well, growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, and him passing away had a really big effect on me, and I guess you could say I kind of developed some trust issues because of it. So my parents recommended that I talk to somebody. Excuse me?
Oh, nothing. I'm just taking notes. But this does pose a good question. First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know how hard that can be for your kind.
Excuse me?
To lose the very few individuals that y'all tend to have. I don't really recall you guys.
My dad is very much so in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, when's the last time you talked to your father?
Oh, no. I didn't mean it in like an offensive way. It's just that Blacks don't really tend to have parents. So, how are things at home?
What the hell?
Is your father in the picture?
Yes.
Or...
You do realize that I'm paying you, right?
By the way, speaking of payment, I don't take EBT or food stamps. So if you need some time to come up with them.
You know what? That's it. You're fired. Yeah.
Okay.
What about your kids? Huh? What about their daddy?
My kid's father is very much so in the picture. He's a great dad. It was reported by verywellmind.com journalist Nadja Niddle in February of this year that anxiety and depression in the Black, Asian, and Native American communities rose. Events such as George Floyd's murder get a great deal of attention, but it is also important to recognize that people have been paying attention to these issues for a long time. Every time a related event takes place, it brings feelings of trauma to the surface. Constant televisation of our country's systemic racism only creates more opportunity for Black minds to suffer, in silence at that. Speaking of being reminded of only your worst possible moments, that brings us to the next section of our talk. Do that.
My name is Joyce.
Depressed.
No
You're
way.
Just a teeny bit angry. Honestly, just chillax. Calm down a bit. Smile more. If I had a dime for every time somebody told me that. But going back on topic, being a Black young woman and still currently living the experience, it's definitely not easy, and I genuinely believe that it's an understatement to say that we are, as a society, not always encouraged to be emotional. Mainly because being emotional, even when you are almost 100% in the right for your emotions and your way of displaying them, lands you in that territory of angry Black woman. This trope has been around for what feels like forever, and it is extremely harmful and a pain in the ass to deal with. So we're gonna talk about it. Parents.com author Rachel Pierre offers one of the two explanations for this trope's origin. The first being for survival, stating, "It's a trope based on a race and gender construct that places culturally defined expectations, including taking on various family roles, a sense of stubborn strength, and caretaking for others at the expense of self, on Black women. It's a disservice to Black women to act like we are machines. Strength is knowing when you need a break. Strength is asking for help." I mean, like, she's definitely not wrong. When is the last time you saw a Black woman in your life cracking under pressure, specifically the type of pressure that our generation would completely shatter under? And quite frankly, it has unfortunately been this way for generations, dating all the way back to chattel slavery, and very heartbreaking. And it's just a hot mess express. Like, the second part of the stereotype origins can be linked to unintentional mental sabotage. A Harvard Business article said this about the topic. California State University professor Wendy Ashley notes it can influence the efficiency of mental health treatment for Black women. The stereotype can lead clinicians to misinterpret their symptoms, leading to misdiagnosis. As a result, the most marginalized group in our society find themselves in this helpless and vicious cycle of constantly wanting to express themselves but not being able to know how without negative backlash. So how does this affect the broader mental health issues we see plaguing our communities today? Let's hop into that. Well, for starters, it's definitely counterintuitive and counterproductive, obviously, to say the least. One of the biggest issues is that the traumas that were inflicted upon past generations aren't able to stop there. This is called generational trauma. And whether you know it or want to admit it or not, many of ourselves, including our parents and even grandparents and other family members, are suffering from the emotional and mental scars of the past via generational trauma. Negative stereotypes and attitudes of rejection have decreased, but continue to occur with measurable adverse consequences. Historical and contemporary instances of negative treatment have led to a distrust of authorities, many of whom are not seen as having the best interests of Black and African Americans in mind. Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse there. With that being said, it comes as no surprise as to why Black people are so hesitant to trust the same systems historically set in place to literally screw us over. It's a little something like this.
It caused me quite a few stress problems.
Tell me more.
Well, for a long time I thought every food came with Parmesan until I realized it was dandruff. Also, I get such bad acid reflux that my tongue's hanging on by a thread. And I've been losing my hair, so I'm forced to dab the patches with pink paint. Oh, and gas. I'm so gassy.
Okay, how long is it going to take you to realize?
Realize what?
That Harold Wilson is the therapist.
What? That's Harold?
Yes, it was me all along, sucker.
Stigma and judgment prevent Black and African American people from seeking treatment for their mental illnesses. Research indicates that Blacks and African Americans believe that mild depression or anxiety would be considered crazy in their social circles. Furthermore, many believe that discussions about mental illness would not be appropriate even among family. Have you ever wondered why your mama doesn't talk about certain cousins on her side, or your dad's side, probably your dad's side, of the family, or why you're not allowed that one uncle/cousin unless you're fully covered
in your own home?
That is why. Unfortunately, Black people have gotten into this nasty point in society where they would rather uphold outdated and misogynistic standards/stigmas than face the noise that it's not them being sensitive or crazy. It's deeper than that. This leads us to our final talking point. If we've known all of this stuff isn't helpful or healthy, why is it that as a community we've allowed ourselves to stay like this for so long? In order to truly understand Black mental health outside of the system's contributions, we have to look at ourselves. The simple answer is fear. We think too deeply about these things and we find ourselves paralyzed in the what ifs or the buts or the how do we even fix this or it's too late to go back, all that other crap. The hard answer is selfishness. Unfortunately, there are still many people in our own lives and bubble that would rather knowingly ignore and force their own trauma onto the next generation. Hot take. It's hot. It's hot. So imagine that a person is so broken down by feelings of inadequacy, worthlessness, and inferiority that eventually even their inner thoughts reflect the same or become voiceless and numb to the positive thoughts necessary to pull an individual out of depression. Sure, a lot of times these manifestations of generational curses slash traumas tend to be unintentional. They tend to be harder to crack and sometimes even harder to notice. But a lot of the times, these things can be avoided and are just actively not, i.e. beating the crap out of your kids about something that isn't even their fault. Or, my personal favorite that I think is effing disgusting, choosing to value the attention of somebody else slash a romantic partner over your own child's well-being. Insert the Precious film. That in and of itself is an entire conversation I do not have time for tonight. Nope. But y'all see where I'm going? You see where I'm going. I could go into great detail.
I could go into great detail.
And one of these days, I will. The second most obviously found examples of voluntarily passing down generational trauma can be found in none other than, drum roll please, the church.
You need to leave!
Now I will go into great detail on this one. Historically, mental health issues were deemed a vice of the devil, and the solution was prayer and stronger faith. After my suicide attempt at age 14, I felt like I could never go back to the church again. In the eyes of the church, I had committed the greatest sin, and I couldn't tell anyone because I knew I would be labeled. Alicia Montgomery with NAMI.org. I have been waiting for this one. Say it with me, y'all. You ready? Get your hands together. Get your hands together. You ready? Prayer and church are not an alternative for therapy. Okay? But on a serious note, as a Christian myself, my prayer life and my faith are obviously very important pillar stones for me. But I'm not gonna sit up here and lie to y'all like that's an excuse, or rather that is something that can completely replace therapy. When people have problems, people go to the people they need to go to. Regardless of whatever you believe in, personally I believe in God, and I do not think God created therapists for no damn reason. Excuse my language. The math is not mathing. Personally, prayer is not going to get rid of somebody's depression. It's just not. It's by telling people, and I have watched over the years, telling people that they are bad Christians, or telling people that they are not praying hard enough, or that they're not trying hard enough, or that they're not believing hard enough while they're in the middle of probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest points of their life, is probably one of the most counterproductive ways I have seen churches try to get members back into the congregation. I have watched, including myself, countless teenagers around my age and a bit older suffer in silence because people at our church decided to keep us in the dark. It was kind of like a silent threatening, sort of like unspoken rule, so to speak. Like if you were to dare confess to your pastor, maybe your youth leader, your one of your friends, whoever that you trusted, and you told them that you were struggling with something, or you were feeling like you were in a really dark place, God forbid, like this author did, if you possibly tried to delete yourself, you would be labeled. I know that because I was labeled, and it sucked, and it felt horrible, and it was embarrassing, it was humiliating. It made me feel like a dozen times worse, because I went to people who I was told and I was brought up to believe that were there to help me, and they did not help me. Instead, they made it worse. So I'm not saying you shouldn't go and trust, your churches, but in all honesty, if you need to seek a therapist, seek a therapist. God is not going to punish you for getting the help you need. That's just a fact. No amount of prayer or stronger faith is going to replace the aid that you could get from a licensed therapist and just talking it out with somebody. Because talking to God, who you obviously can't see or even hear all the time, doesn't always help you. Sometimes you just need a person, and you need that one-on-one connection. And there is nothing wrong with that. So that was just a little side note. Well, that concludes my video, and in all honesty, the topic of mental health within the Black community has become a very big taboo, mainly because it's been drawn out for decades, because so many people struggle with just simply talking about it or even uttering its name. Like it's like people act like it's something that is so sickly and dangerous and scary because of how stigmatized it is, and because the fact that we as a people are already stigmatized. Nobody wants to double that. This is not a your double your luck type vibe, baby, no. But the systemic, stereotypical, unpurposeful, and even at times purposeful generational trauma isn't going away anytime soon until we make it. Aside from the obvious, research like this matters because it teaches us about what's been done, what can be done, and what needs to be done. With it, we can prepare ourselves for now and tomorrow. More recently, we've seen some of the slightly older generations, aka millennials, taking that extra step to break the generational curses that they may have experienced in their childhood. Like, instead of following in the footsteps of their parents or their grandparents, they talk to their kids. Some people practice gentle parenting. Other people choose to give their kids their own personal space, etc. Like, parenting and raising kids is just one factor of and just sector of how generational trauma can but doesn't have to be passed down. And I think it is really important for us as the more soon to be adults, if you will, to start thinking about these things. Do not start having kids. Don't do that. But just be mindful of your actions and be mindful of maybe how you treat your cousins, how you treat yourself, most importantly, how you treat your friends, and just keep a stable mind. I am a hypocrite on that front, but you don't have to be. So do yourself a favor, have that uncomfortable talk. Maybe it might turn into an argument depending on how your family is. I know that's how it works with mine. And please be different. Break some generational curses. Just get it together. Okay? Bye.